Welcome to The Liberation Effect with me, your host, Helen Villas. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Liberation Effect. Today, I'm joined by the lovely Kate, who is coming to talk to me after having gone no contact and kind of wanting some idea of how to cope with that. And so actually, I'm just going to throw it straight over to you, Kate. What is it you're looking for from our time together today?
Okay, thank you, Helen. When I've explored the idea of going no contact previously and heard everyone's stories on the forums and in the groups, they always talk about this level of peace that they gain and they feel safe and it was worth it. And whereas I'm at my absolute lowest and I'm not in peace,
Right.
I'm scared
Okay.
and I want to know, I guess, if that is normal, whatever normal is, but also how to not feel like that. Also, as well, I can't go back. So, but yeah, I do not feel this level of peace that everyone talks
Yeah.
about.
That's really difficult because you're seeing everybody else get this amazing supposed experience of freedom and liberation, and then you are stuck in this kind of fear space and really struggling with that. So why don't you give me a bit of background context, what's happened and why you're feeling that fear and that sort of thing?
So, my story is very, very similar to so many. So, narcissistic mother,
Okay.
and how I grew up was my complete norm. I didn't
Right.
even question it. And to the point where, but I experienced depression
Right.
my entire life, but I didn't know why.
Okay.
And from my
Okay.
generation, if you experienced depression, it was because there was something wrong with your brain, and they would
Yes.
give you antidepressants, and you'd be okay. And it was always enforced by my mother as well that it runs in the family. So of course, you're depressed because the weak side of the family always have felt this way.
The
And
weak side of the family.
yeah, so her father
Right.
and
Right.
and then and then also on my father's side, different mental health illnesses, which back then you would have been sectioned, I guess, or horrific things done
Right.
to you. But yeah, um, so it was just yeah, something short circuiting in your brain, and we fixed that with pills. And whenever things, so I moved away a lot. I travelled a lot. I was always chasing something to try and feel better. And when it wouldn't work out, I would always come home to my mother because when I wasn't well, she would be kind to me and
Right.
it would feel amazing. And I would crave that. I remember as a kid, I'd really look forward to being ill. When I'd run out
Yeah.
of the childhood illnesses, that we all used to get, like chicken pox and all that, I was a bit like, damn, oh, what am I going to do next? I'm going to hope for the next, virus because I remember going home in my 20s, leaving my then boyfriend because I was struggling so much and going to the doctors with my mother and the doctor asking, what have I got to be depressed about? There must be something going on. And I said this with complete conviction. So my mother was there, but I truly believe this. I said, and I remember I had an amazing childhood. I've got nothing to be unhappy about. I had absolutely everything for me, every opportunity, everything material. And yeah, amazing childhood. And I believe it. I really said that. I wasn't saying it just because she was sat next to me. I
Sure.
really,
Sure.
I really did believe
Yeah.
it. Um, and I would say it would be like the last, well, it's probably during lockdown, and with the rise of social media, your platforms, the channels, And my depression had escalated over the years into,
Right.
I now know to be PMDD.
Oh, okay. That's
Uh,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, and I actually now work at my own channel, and everything is like I believe that these, so PMDD symptoms or other symptomatic things of the body, like, the body keeps score. I do think it's unresolved trauma, and I do think it comes from childhood, and it's a massive link between narcissistic abuse.
Right.
But I never listened to my body. I hated my body for it. I hated the way I
Right.
felt. I hated feeling broken.
Mm.
And it was just like during lockdown and everything, realizing that, sorry, I found your channel. I found TikTok. I found some people were talking about actually their experiences, and it suddenly just all started to click. And
Right.
so I'd always felt worthless, and I always knew that I'd been treated very differently to my sibling,
Right.
but I also felt I was being incredibly dramatic about that because I was told I was.
Right.
But equally as well, like, I had everything. I came from a very technically middle class background, and I was told every day how lucky I was and how I had everything,
Right.
which I couldn't deny. And then as well, I was supported financially for a lot of my life
Right.
by my mother. So it's
Okay.
very hard to think this person has been harming me or hurts me because
Sure.
they do so much for me.
Right.
The crazy thing, I'd probably listened to one of your episodes, and then I'd heard a knock at the door, and then she just would come in. Back then she would just come into the house. And I remember
Right.
going, oh shit, my shopping is in the corridor, and it's
Right.
from Marks and Spencer's. I'm like, shit,
Right.
Marks and Spencer bags. I am going to get I'm going to get really criticised for this. And I was like, God. And I remember like standing over them, trying to hide them, get them out the way. And then beating myself up, going, oh my God, you silly cow. Why did you not take that shopping away? Why did you not put the shopping in different bags? Why did you,
Oh gosh.
I was
Okay.
really, really
Yeah.
scared. And she did notice. And of course I got, told off because no one can afford to shop at Marks and Spencer's, and I have no right to, and not someone in your position shouldn't be shopping there. And when she left, it kind of just all the dots started, it's like going, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is my life. This is my whole life.
Yeah.
Every single day,
Right.
I'm working around the possibility of getting told off, criticised,
Can I give you a word?
Yes.
Attacked.
Yes.
You're trying to protect yourself from being attacked constantly.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And then it sounds silly, it's just over some shopping, but then it was like, oh my God, my entire life is this. Everything, to the point where, like the post on the side, the bank at the top might be the wrong bank.
Wow. Okay.
Like it could be anything. And like I've got a list here because I've had to, whenever I want to go back, I want to go back to,
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to
And
remember what
yeah.
it's been said and done to me over the
Okay.
years.
By the way, that's really brilliant that you've done that for yourself. That's really good self-protection.
I think that's probably from your book, I think.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
But regardless, you still did it.
But yeah, because it's so easy to step into everything that was good and all the nice
Yes.
things.
It's really difficult, isn't it? Because that narrative that you've had of you've had everything, you've got everything, you've been given everything, you've got nothing to complain about. And actually, this is why money is such a great smokescreen for abuse. And I mean, it really is the most effective smokescreen. We only need to look at these very big celebrities and stars who are now being exposed, who've got away with so much because of the money that they had and the influence that they had, that bought them, and the silence that money buys, whether it's from the victim or whether it's from people who are observing and also benefiting from that money. So you are hearing constantly how lucky you are and how good you've had it. And when we do step out and go no contact, our kind of cognitive dissonance can ramp up a bit and go, because we're trying to protect ourselves even from the grief maybe of going no contact, and go, well, it wasn't all that bad. Like, I could cope with if I do this, right? And there's this, it's just devastating because it's that self-gaslighting part. There was something fascinating, and I did comment on it, that you said that really struck me as you've gone on further through the story around your mother trying to create a dependency from you on her. And the one thing that made me go, ooh, and then as you've gone through, I've kind of felt like it's been confirmed. And you can challenge and say I'm wrong, and that's absolutely valid and fine. I won't be worried about it. When you were diagnosed with depression, and first of all, the narrative of it runs in the weak side of the family, being like there's something wrong with you, you're weak because you've got depression. Drives me mad as a kind of concept anyway. But second of all, that it runs in the family, it's genetic, it's inherent, therefore you will not ever get better. Therefore you will always need me. Therefore you'll always have to rely on me to help you make decisions, to help you live, and then this funding you even, kind of creating this constant dependency. So you're never empowered because I've got this thing and I can't do anything about it. It's just part of my brain and my makeup, and there's no way I can change this. And you walk through life scared that you can't cope and disempowered. And do you notice that with her,
I realised,
dependency?
I realised I now look back and go, it was all one big scam, really, on me. It
Yeah,
was
because even the fact that you looked forward to childhood illness showed that the relationship was good when you were dependent, right? So when you were dependent, but if you showed autonomy, shopping at Marks and Spencer's, using a different bank to bank with, whatever, you get criticised, attacked, judged, shamed, humiliated. Is that fair, do you think?
absolutely. It was just, there's so many parts to my story, but it's just realising that was the creation of it. It was like it just feels like a complete scam. And one of the
Yeah,
things that there was a lot of financial control. And I have to say,
right.
when I went no contact and walked away, that was the biggest, bravest, boldest thing I ever did, was to walk out and say, I don't need your money anymore. Because inside I
Yeah.
was like, I really do need your money,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. And that's the difficulty of it, because we need money to live. And if you've
Yeah.
got used to having a certain lifestyle, it keeps you tied into, I mean, like it's a chain, and it's
Mm.
really hard one to break. There's no shame in that. That was brave. That was really bold. Like,
It was not
really brave.
real, because it was like, again, I thought I'm a terrible person because I've got kids as well. And I was like,
Mm,
what am what am I going to do here? Like, that has always been
right.
my, yeah. And
Yeah.
and it was never a case of, I'd never go to her for money. It was always kind of dumped in my account, and it just felt,
Right.
but again, that's a power, it's a control. It's like,
Yeah.
you
What
know,
was she buying with it, do you think?
my loyalty, my silence. I can't be therefore critical. My mother
Right.
was a teacher.
Right.
I've noticed there seems to be a big thing in, say, education, medicine, people that are
Yeah.
these service jobs. And I've worked out, I guess, that half the people in these jobs are amazing people who really
Yeah.
want to really help others and leave that legacy. And I think the other half are power hungry and just,
For sure.
yeah.
Well, what you've described with your mum is, or your mother, is that potentially, and obviously I'm not diagnosing in any way, shape, or form, but potentially there being a kind of hero syndrome. Do you know what hero syndrome is?
Yes.
Yeah. So those that don't know, it's basically the idea that people put themselves in positions where they can be the hero, the one that rescues people. You see it a lot in paramedics, in nurses, doctors, in those sort of emergent spaces or places where people are vulnerable. Charities, we see it a lot, see it in schools a lot. You know, those places where there are people who will be vulnerable and dependent, who can be exploited for supply, so that the hero syndrome sufferer can get some the reward that they get, and they get very cross if they are not rewarded in the way that they feel, like adulation and adoration and you know, high status or whatever. They get very cross if they don't receive that. Whether that's expressed overtly or covertly is a different matter, but it very much sounds like that hero syndrome is there for her. And you're right, there is, we all see it a lot in any situation where people are vulnerable and dependent on others for support, help, basic living kind of stuff. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all, quite honestly.
Yeah, and I think it was always I revered her, and I just saw her as this person of power. And even though she's a little old lady now, I still view her from the 80s, um,
Right.
with big shoulder pads and
Yeah.
like just has this, demeanor about her and big hair. um,
Right.
I wouldn't say she was,
Powerful. Is
yeah,
that the word? Powerful?
powerful. I wouldn't say glamorous. I wouldn't, in that sense,
Okay.
it's because that to take time in your appearance in that way would be incredibly vain, and that's what I was always taught. So I was just that, you know, I'm just a terrible person. I am vain. I am selfish, and I'm stupid. That was a big thing as well, and or average at best on a good day, and that any good results I got were maybe a fluke, and I really was the dunce of the family, and that my best hope was because I think she considered me quite pretty when I was younger, so that maybe for the
Right.
age of 25 I did have a chance of bagging a rich husband, because that was always said,
Right.
if you're going to continue this type of lifestyle, you either need to get an incredibly good job or marry a very rich man. And the chances of you getting a very good job are lower than you've still got your looks, so you can marry, you know.
Good Lord.
Um,
Okay.
and and it sounds shocking when I say that now, and especially because I do have a daughter, but that was my
Right.
norm. I thought, to me, that I'm like, I'm with you, absolutely. That is great advice. Thank you, Mum. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. She's only looking out for me here. Um, but like my self worth was on the floor. Like I had none
Yeah.
whatsoever.
So let's not blame you for believing it. Let's not blame you for thinking, yeah, you're right and thanks for helping, because she had conditioned you to believe that she knew everything, right? She conditioned you to believe you can't make decisions, you can't have autonomy, you can't think for yourself, that you're too vulnerable and weak, you don't have the ability to get a I mean, imagine saying that to your child. You'll never be able to get a job good enough to pay for the lifestyle that you want. So you have to depend on other people for it. Look at her reinforcing this dependency narrative constantly. And until you depend on a man, who I will probably be in cahoots with, until you depend on a man, I am going to make you dependent on me. Keep
Absolutely.
you,
Everything is
rather. Keep
a
you.
massive reinforcement. Everything, again, it just adds to this. Like I keep saying, I got scammed. One of the
Yeah.
things that I'm working through at the minute is the grief in that I feel robbed as a mother, and the
Yeah.
experiences I had with my children. Because if I go way back to my little girl stays, I think I probably wanted a lot of children. I think I wanted about 4 kids. And
Right.
when we're little girls and we think about our big white weddings and and just what was being modelled at the
Yeah, yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
that's like Barbies and all that, and I
Yeah.
really did. But from as long as I can remember, it was always said to me, you shouldn't have children. You don't like children. You do not like babies. You will not be very good at it. As I got older, it was going to be, so I wasn't given dolls to play with. I wasn't allowed tiny tears. I wasn't allowed baby dolls or prams or
Mm.
anything like that. And again, at the time, I was like, that's because my mum's so cool. She wants me to be this, she's a feminist. That's what I would tell myself.
Right,
And she says, you
right.
don't want to be tied down with children. You want to have freedom. You want to have this. And then, of course, it was like, look what happened to me. I had kids and now I'm, you know,
Oh.
yeah.
And then what do you have from that even? What do you hear in that comment?
Well, it was always, she never wanted them. My dad pushed her to have them. And therefore, so she's doing a pretty good job considering she didn't want children. And I should be grateful for that. And um,
I mean, she's telling you she resents you
yeah,
from the second you were born, like conceived even. Like, and are you oldest, just out of interest?
yes. Yeah,
Makes sense.
of course. Of
Okay.
course I am.
Yeah. Oldest daughters,
Yeah.
right, okay.
I was passed off straight away as a baby and she went back to work even though she didn't have to. So it was like a
Right.
tick in the box. But yeah, so it was always, you shouldn't have children, this and this and this. You want freedom, you want autonomy, you want to live your life, you want to travel, you don't want to be tied down. And it was really, really reinforced to the point where I was like, I think I really do want children. I think I really do. And so so I was married, house, steady job at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, if I just get pregnant, that won't be my fault, will it? I mean, then it's what I won't be told off because I haven't planned it, right? So I'll just see if I
Oh
just
my
get pregnant.
goodness.
And I did, I got
Kate.
pregnant straight away. Um, and then I was like, oh shit, I was so scared. And this is how crazy it was. I
Mm,
had to get my
mm.
then husband to phone her and tell her that she was going to be a grandmother because to me, if he told her, she couldn't be mad because that would make her look bad. Because as a grandma, you have to be like,
Right.
exciting, of course, absolutely. But if
Yeah.
I had told her,
Right.
it would have been very dangerous. But and I remember him at the time going, "You sure? You sure you want me to call?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah."
Mm.
And again, that's just a protection thing. And then it was
No, I get it. It's just awful, isn't it? I mean, carry on. Sorry.
so yeah. So it was just, and then I completely modelled what she viewed from that point of view, and I feel so robbed because I was so dissociated from my baby, from my daughter.
Right.
Like I didn't get into the pregnancy almost.
Yeah.
I worked to the 11th hour because that's what good, strong women do. I had no time for myself whatsoever. I didn't get fat, in her words. You mustn't do that. That's really bad. So I was monitored my weight my entire pregnancy just to make sure I wasn't, just a bump. And she was actually there when I gave birth because I don't know how that happened, but she was kind of like, I don't know. I totally don't know even how that happened. But she was
Right.
there. She also booked a holiday for around the time I was due to give birth.
Okay. Yeah.
So then I was really stressed because, oh God, what? Anyway, and then she was actually on her way to this holiday when my waters broke. So I was like, oh,
Right.
I'm really sorry, but this has happened.
Isn't that interesting? So she booked how did she react when your water's broken? You
The
called
same
her.
way as if when I was ill when I was younger. Oh no, don't worry, it's absolutely fine. Mummy's here, right? I'm coming.
Right.
Yeah.
How many times has that been held over you?
Well, no, actually, it hasn't because her behavior afterwards was so strange. So, I was
Oh, right.
actually,
Okay.
I was actually, I was in labour for a really long time, 2 days. It all went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Nearly died. Lost a
Yeah.
lot of blood. It all went cahoots. So at the time, I was really glad that she was there because
Right.
I don't remember, I didn't get to hold my baby or feed her or dress
Right.
her or anything. So my mother did. And I remember
Right.
thinking at the time, oh, isn't that amazing that she could be there for me and
Right.
my
Yeah.
baby, and to witness the whole thing. I do now look back as well, though, that the whole time I was in labour, I wasn't letting go. Like, I wasn't feeling my body. I wasn't.
Right.
I
I
was.
was just thinking that you were scared, right?
Mustn't be too dramatic. Mustn't cry. Interestingly, as well, actually, like I think about 6 months later, she bought me some very expensive jewelry and gave it to me, saying that I thought you were going to be a complete fanny, giving birth, but you proved how strong you were. So here's some jewelry, you know, which I've since flogged, by the way. And
I'm confused. I'm confused. What was it that you did that she thought that she approved of?
so I went through 2 days of hell, and also turned
Right.
down a lot of pain relief. I eventually had to have it because I was struggling so much. And
Oh,
I
hang on.
yeah,
She rewarded your suffering.
yeah.
I mean that is really quite
It's
obscene.
gross, actually. It's like the jewelry represents blood, money, and it's just horrible.
Yeah,
But even at the time, I was like, wow, what a gracious gift. Thank you. That makes me feel
of course,
amazing,
of course.
But yeah, so I was in hospital for quite a bit. And then when we eventually came home, I realized she'd waited around that entire time. And then literally the minute I got home, she was like, right, I'm off on holiday. And I remember everyone else in the room, because obviously there was extended family in the room around the baby, got,
Mm,
that's a bit strange. But,
mm,
I think
mm.
your daughter's like, I also as well, I'd come back from hospital weighing less than what I had pre-pregnancy because it had so
Wow.
wrecked me. I looked
Mm.
so ill, and she was actually proud of that. She was actually like, look at her, she's size 8, she's just had a baby, and look at her. I was like, I looked horrendous, and it was for a
Oh
reason,
God.
but it was.
So there's this very toxic narrative happening between you and her where your suffering, your dependency is bought and rewarded, and your autonomy is punished and shamed constantly. So her intrusion on your life, I'm intrigued to know how she was around your wedding, and if there was any now other people aren't going to see because we don't use your image because of safeguarding, but the response in your head tilt and like was fairly telling. What, you go ahead, what was that like?
I so I probably shouldn't have got married to the person I did, and I
Okay.
wasn't happy on my wedding day, right? But I do look back and go, that was the time I felt closest to my mother, was the
Right.
preparation of my wedding.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, would give her everything she wanted, as she's the star of the show, the mother of the
Yeah.
bride, and she's paying for
Yeah.
the whole damn thing, isn't she? So
Yeah. And so then did she get to make all the decisions and the
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I have to say, like, it didn't feel like that
Sure.
because it was the way it was. But equally, I was so happy to be spending time with her, and so happy for her to be in a good mood, and so grateful that she was paying for everything. I wasn't going to,
Sure.
say no to
Sure.
anything. And it wasn't like there wasn't any weird things that she tried to do with my wedding, but it was very, I mean, considering I think who I am, and I'm quite individual, and okay, I know what I like, and this wouldn't have been my dream wedding as a little girl.
Right.
It was
Okay.
just
Right.
so ticking the box, and just so for
Right.
show, and just so for everyone coming,
It was
but
all image based, right? For
completely
what
image
she
based. It didn't occur to me, like, I was so lost in that. I was so unhappy as well. That I was so unhappy inside, and I wasn't excited to get married. But I was just so grateful for her being so happy around that time.
It
So
squished everything down.
yeah, but I think a big part of this like story is that so my dad in this so I know that you've talked about on your podcast and everything about enablers, and
Yes.
and I can honestly say, and I because I've really explored this and it was painful to do, I don't think my dad was an enabler at all.
Okay.
I really do
Okay.
think there was a level of ignorance, and I think he thought my
Right.
mum was hard work. But I think, and this was his second marriage as well, and I think that his
Right.
first wife was very similar, and he wasn't going to get this
Right.
wrong. He had no social life. He was either at work or in the garage.
Right.
When when she was attacking to me, abusive towards me in front of him, which wasn't common, he would stand up for me, much to his own detriment,
Right.
and then she would silent treat him for the week as well.
Right.
He, if she went for me physically, he would get in the way of that, and he would stop it.
Okay.
So I do think there's just a level of I think in a way he was probably a victim of it as well. I don't think he knew what was going
Yeah.
on. And like I said, he was just in the garage a lot. Or like, men go to
Okay.
the shed or the allotment. He was just in the garage a lot or at work. And I was incredibly close to my dad, and I think there was obviously a lot of jealousy
Right.
there on my mother's part. And my dad died when I was 15, and
Okay.
it was never spoken about. In fact, from the point he got ill, obviously the way that was
Really?
handled.
Like,
So I've only grieved my dad in the last couple of years.
yeah. Get
So
that. That's very difficult. So he died when you were 15. He was your close parent and your protector.
definitely.
I would say there's something about him going into the garage so much, being like, I need to escape this situation. Like he is protecting himself in that
Yeah.
too. But that's human as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think there's a really interesting thing. I don't know if you're aware, my dad died when I was 19 and I was very close to him, and he died very suddenly. There's a thing that happens a little bit when, and this might not be your experience, and you said you've kind of done a lot of like looking into it, but I'm more saying this for listeners than for you, is that one of the things that can happen when the parent dies young, the safe parent dies younger, and even older if we don't know what's happening kind of thing until later on, the thing that can happen is that they can kind of get crystallized in this good, safe parent, perfect parent almost thing, form. And we don't want to look too closely, because to do so means maybe accepting that they were a flawed human being too. And that is totally understandable, because to kind of have to essentially grieve that parent all over again or for the first time, and then also accept that they're a fallible human being and the kind of consequences of that can be incredibly painful. So it's this thing of integrating the lost parent, the dead parent, the safe dead parent, was a human being too, and that they were fallible, and that it doesn't mean we lose them by acknowledging they were fallible. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so recognizing that he left that environment because he knew it wasn't good for him. He went into the garage because he didn't like it in the house. And yes, he stood up and he protected you. And that is actually amazing and brilliant, because obviously, as you said, it came at a cost to him too. But he also did leave you in that environment when he went to the garage. So the two things can be true, right? That
Absolutely.
he protected himself and he protected you. And sometimes when he protected himself, you might have been exposed to stuff. Yeah? Do
Yeah,
you think that's fair?
absolutely. Because I know that it was very hard for what you just said to go back over it, because I thought I've got to
Yeah.
accept here that he might. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I look at it as obviously everyone's flawed, and every parent can always do more, right? We can always done
Yeah.
better. We could
Yeah.
always done more. But I also think he would have been the sort of person who would have accepted that when confronted with it as well. God, you're absolutely right.
Right.
And I do
Yeah.
believe that. So, because I know that myself now is like, yes, I've been a victim of this, but I am the adult here, and I've got to protect my children. So there's always more we can do and step up and do that. Absolutely. But I think I've got to a good place with my dad and that. But yes, he when going into the garage, he was dissociating, stepping out, protecting himself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's an acknowledgement, isn't it? I mean, because there's one thing to have a hobby, and there's another thing to disconnect entirely from the family and the environment to
Yeah.
not be exposed to it, isn't there? It's a difficult
There was always something wrong
thing.
with the car. Every day there was
Yeah.
something wrong with the
Right.
car. Yeah. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
but I also look at it
So
as sorry.
no, go on. Go on. You
I,
finish that
so
sentence.
he would leave me, and then he did that forever when he died. He did leave me in this
Yeah.
absolute mess.
All right.
Yeah.
And that's just huge grief in there. That this is like this pattern, and then it's the confirmed pattern that he left you when he died. And then it was never spoken about.
So I just realised it just became my mum's show, my mum's grief.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it was the first Father's Day after he died.
Right.
Her father was still alive, and we all took him out, and my dad was never mentioned. And his
Oh, I'm
birthday,
furious for you. I'm so angry for you. And you were what, 15 at this point, or
yeah,
16
I was
maybe?
15, I
But
was going into my GCSEs, and it just went back to school, went back to work, everything is normal. And everything that I was living beforehand, I was suddenly living without his protection. It just ramped up tenfold. And I just became an even bigger problem.
right.
And one of the things that happened in my early childhood, which I'm still working through, but there was sexual abuse by a close family
Right.
member.
Right.
I don't think it's important for me to know the details of that for me, really. I just know that it happened, and that's
Right.
enough. And I know that's when my mother's treatment of me would have changed as a little girl, because suddenly
Right.
it just went wrong. And
Hang on, no, sorry. I want to understand. How did it change the behaviour towards you?
so while she wasn't a very present mother before the age of 5 with me, I was looked after in terms of I was turned out beautifully, very pretty clothes.
Right.
My hair was set every night. I was kept to a certain
Just
standard. It
wow.
was very, very pretty little thing, and paraded around.
You were a doll. You were a doll for her to dress up.
Yeah. And when I talk about this cloud, this really bad thing happening, and I don't know the full details, but I just know how my body. If you look at the photos around that time, you just see, and she knew, and then I was taken to the hairdressers, and my beautiful blonde hair was cut off, and then you just look at me. I look dishevelled. I look.
So she started making you unattractive.
Yeah. Anyway, and then this was obviously stuffed down in me. It surfaced again at the age of 12. The memories, the flashbacks, everything came back due to a death of a close family member, again, someone I felt safe with. All came bubbling up. I had I would say, the courage, but back then I thought the stupidity to go to my mother. I felt so embarrassed and so uncomfortable that I've got to tell her how this person makes me feel and what I think's happened. And it's interesting when you said about how she made me unattractive, because her first words were, you do realise he's homosexual, so he wouldn't have been interested in you. So,
What?
yeah.
So she tried to deny it happened?
Said that was the first thing. And then she said, right, okay, well, let's not talk about it, but I promise to keep you safe and I won't leave you alone with this person anymore. And I have to say that did make me feel good. Like it felt...
Of course it did, because it was... Yeah, okay. Sorry, yes, of course you did.
But that didn't happen.
Because
if that didn't happen, and to the point where I was like, did I dream it? Maybe it didn't happen.
Right.
And maybe the whole thing never happened anyway. Because to the point where things carried on so normally. And she also said as well, of course, do not tell your dad. And I was like, okay, I won't, because I don't want to hurt him,
Right.
I know my dad would have been the sort of person that would have buried this person.
Yeah.
So that probably, it would have caused drama. It would have been something off EastEnders, had he known.
Right.
She would not have wanted that.
That's really interesting. Sorry, it's really interesting that you categorise it as drama and EastEnders, and whereas actually what you're saying is he would have wanted the person held accountable, when your mother is saying, let's sweep it under the carpet.
I mean...
I don't know that he would have been dramatic. I think he would have reacted as a father should when his daughter has been sexually abused by somebody that is meant to be trustworthy in the family.
It was a very close family member, and it would have made family gatherings very difficult, is how I kind of...
but meanwhile, it's all right. Okay.
Yeah. That's how I kind of have to have this like dark sense of humor about it, with her.
I get it. I mean, I get it. But it's like there is a danger that you minimize the actual reality of that. Even when you disclosed at 12, the fact that she responded even in that way, rather than like, what do you mean? Well, no, you must be confused. Rather than, it just shows straight away that she knew. She knew full well. And I mean, you said that she knew, but like the fact that she didn't react with shock and horror and ask for clarification and was immediately dismissive.
Yeah.
Because she was trying to convince you. I mean, she was gaslighting you.
Well, it worked because I stuffed it so far down that I never really thought about it. I would be looking back, I was shaky around this person. But then unfortunately, after my dad died, everything was so swept under. I was then forced to go to family events, holidays with this person.
Oh my God.
It was just to the point where I was like, I am such a bad person. Look at all this drama, all this shit I've caused for my family. Everything they tell me about myself must be true, right? Because
of course,
I'm a massive inconvenience. And I thought I need to make more of an effort with this person. And it wasn't until like in the last few years where I made one final effort with this person because I felt so bad about everything that had happened. And then when I was making this effort, visiting this person, my body finally remembered. And I had to leave the room, vomit, and then I got in the car and drove, and that was it. And it all came.
So first of all, I'm so glad you advocated for protected yourself in that moment. But it's absolutely fucking outrageous that, I mean, beyond outrageous, that not only did she not do anything about it when it happened at 5, she obviously knew because she's cut your hair off and starts not dressing you up. I mean, it's like she's gone from one extreme. I mean, setting your hair. When you said that, I was like, how do you even do that to a 5-year-old? How do you even get a 5-year-old to cooperate with that?
I know, but I didn't. It was so painful, and I used to cry because it was like I couldn't sleep.
I bet you did.
In the curlers, it was horrible. But
right, yeah. So why are you doing that to that? So she sexualized you essentially. Then you got sexually abused, and then she desexualized you. But also then it's, see, nobody could possibly want you because look at you, right? And so, I mean, the whole thing, it's just such mindfuckery to create this belief in a child that it's their fault that there is this tension or that there is this difficulty. But on top of that, do you realise that she triangulated you against your father, created more of a dependency on her by telling you not to tell him about it?
I have. I'm kind of
Did you
like,
see that?
yeah. It's when I'm at the minute. It's like every day. It's like, oh, now what? Like another realization comes
Yeah,
up, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, I'm just,
yeah,
and sometimes it's too much, and then I
yeah,
go,
sure.
oh, of course you did, of course,
Yeah,
everything, yeah.
yeah.
So
It's like, I think of it like fairy lights, and that like there's like these strings of fairy lights, and like you suddenly have this pop, pop, pop. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! And then suddenly there's a floodlight, like you get on a football pitch moment,
yeah,
and it's just like, holy shit! And you are, it's completely overwhelming. It's completely over, because it basically, what it does is destabilizes our entire identity, our
yeah,
belief system, our the way we operate in the world, which actually is a really good thing because we're starting to unlearn everything we've believed or been taught to believe that has been used to control us. But in the process of it, it's horrifically disorientating, lonely, and all of those things. And I'm just kind of going back to what we were talking about at the beginning. You mentioned being no contact and not having this peace, and that you wanted to kind of really explore and understand that side of thing and being scared of her. First of all, it's no wonder you're scared of her. Look at all the different ways in which she's undermined you, shamed you, humiliated you, removed your identity, and all that thing. But what is she doing now that is making you, what's happening now that's giving you this fear?
well, I do carry a lot of shame regarding even being scared, because
Okay.
I've got some great people in my life, I really do, but they've not
Okay.
lived this. So they really can't understand why I'm scared of this little goblin, like
Yeah.
they just can't, Um, and I was, by the way,
Goblins are scary. Sorry, the language you just used then was really interesting. I'll just interrupt you for a moment and just go, it's interesting that you say they can't see why I'm scared of this little goblin, right? Whereas actually a goblin is intentionally scary, right? The idea of them is that they are scary and they do horrible things to us, and they're small and undetectable, and they do lots of horrid things. If you were calling her, if you had said why I'm scared of this small little woman, little old lady, it would. Can you hear the difference in the language and how much power a goblin has versus a little old lady? And that's not to be ageist before everyone comes at me, but it's that kind of thing of
yeah,
listen to the difference in the language.
yeah.
She's holding huge power. So sorry, I did interrupt you there. Carry on.
No,
What were
I
you
think
saying?
no. It's like I hadn't really thought about it, but language is so important, isn't it? The way we use
So
it.
important.
Yeah. Well, I think if I tell you about how I went no contact, that might
Yeah.
add to it because my
Okay.
hand was forced there. So,
Okay.
um, over probably about 18 months ago, so obviously, yeah, all the light bulbs are going off, and it's like it's just and I'm but at the same time, I'm doing my own work and I'm doing my own got my own channel, and I'm making the correlation between um, mental health and the body, and and the PMDD and that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't talk about my experiences in detail. I make the occasional
Okay.
reference. I don't talk about names, anything like that. But I feel I have to be completely transparent with my audience. Go, look, the reason I know this is because this, and this, and this,
Yeah.
to a point. And so there is the occasional reference on my work. And so about 18 months ago, I told my younger sister some things of what had happened growing up. Occasionally, some of it, I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't tell her everything in one sitting, it would just be
Mm-hmm.
too much. And She said to me, "It's not that I don't believe you, but,"
Mm.
and it was left, and it was like, okay. I was like, okay, look, I've tried. I've really tried here, but not gone.
Mm.
Not long afterwards, she came across some of my work and
Oh dear.
just hit the roof and basically sent me an email saying that I'd lied, that how ashamed Dad and the family would be of me.
Oh, that makes me so cross. Sorry,
Yeah,
weaponizing your father. Okay.
that all the stuff that I listened to, the podcasts, the therapist, all the work I'd done was drivel, was toxic, that had taken me to this place that was warping my mind. And that if I needed to apologise to our mother and all the family members that I'd hurt, and she would pay for the correct therapy. But if I didn't, she no longer wanted me in her life. And
Right.
I would say so. I know I now do have PTSD from this
Right.
interaction.
Right. Not surprising.
And she forwarded this to our mother. Yeah.
She forwarded her email to you, to your mother.
And family members.
That is vile. Okay.
I have to
Right.
say that of all the shit I've experienced and all the feelings, nothing is as painful as that betrayal.
There's such betrayal. Yes, such betrayal. Such betrayal. You trusted her with your experience and she exploited you with it. She exploited you and destroyed you with it.
I felt destroyed.
Stay with this feeling a little bit. What's happening right now for you?
I've just seen my beautiful daughter leave, and I've just thought about her going to someone,
Yeah.
that she trusted,
Yeah.
with to tell them for help, and if they did that to her.
And what would you do? What would you do if you heard about that?
So rage is a new thing for me because I was never allowed to feel it,
Okay.
but now I'm
Yes.
feeling it, and it's like, oh, because that's how
Let's
I.
just be clear on language a second. Rage or anger? Because rage is destructive of other people. Anger is healthy and a mask for pain.
No, I was never allowed to feel anger. It's actually one of the few things that my sister and I do share. It was commented that neither of us, so we don't experience road rage, not reactive usually.
Right.
We don't send reactive
Right.
text. We don't, yeah. Like I honestly, I always thought this was really interesting. I'd be in, in traffic or an intense environment, and people are very spiky and getting reactive and f-bombing, and I'd always be like, huh? What
Yeah,
are you doing?
why are you
I
doing
just
that?
couldn't
Yeah.
align with that. It was so but it's because I wasn't allowed to, because that was dangerous. I
Right.
showed anger probably till I was about 12 or 13, and I would, I'd be sent
Right.
to my room and I would punch pillows and things, but it just never got me anywhere. So in the end, it was just like, yeah, can't. It's not safe for me to
You cut it
to be
off.
angry. And also as well that
What was it safe for you to show?
um, I now know it was reactive abuse, but my mother used to get me into a state of proper ugly crying. I'd be
Right. Yeah.
really crying and screaming and snot and everything. And that's when she'd go really calm and be like, hmm. And then I carry so much shame around crying in general and ugly crying. And then when I don't do it anymore because I've worked through it, but when I would start to what I call ugly crying, I would then have a panic attack. So,
Yeah, because you get triggered by your own emotion.
yeah.
That's very, very common for the people I speak to. And I've actually talked about this a lot on my membership platform on the Hub, where our own emotion can trigger us horribly. So when when we start to access it, we have to do it very carefully, like tiny little increments. If you're scared of rejection, of saying no, have no idea how to trust people, you're not alone, and you don't have to heal alone either. That's what the Hub is for. It's a membership community designed for survivors just like you. Every month, we dive into powerful courses, we hold live calls, and connect in a supportive, understanding space so you can break free from the past and build healthy, fulfilling relationships. Maybe it's time to stop surviving and instead start thriving. Visit jointhehub.ac today using the code POD20 to get £20 off your first month's membership. I can't wait to see you there. Take care. Bye. So sorry, go on. So anger is a new emotion for you. And like when your sister did that, you said rage, and I challenged the idea of it being rage, because rage is super destructive of other people. And that might be valid. That might have been the right words. And
Well, it is interesting because I do look back now, and again, I just want to hug myself from that time and go, God, you were so brave, because it took me 3 or 4 days. But I went round my mother's. It's like, well, put my war paint on. I've got. I remember like driving up and feeling like my dad was on my shoulder. I was like, oh God, I've never been so scared. And then when I walked into the kitchen, the email was on the side. It'd been printed off and highlighted and all that. And I don't think I was very forthright. I don't think I was very strong, but I did say that I'm not entertaining this. I'm not, this is disgusting. And also, I don't want your financial help anymore. And yeah, and I was trembling. I was like really like, ooh, like lip quivering. I wasn't.
Are you feeling it right now? Are you feeling the same feelings right now? A little bit diluted, maybe, but
Yeah, diluted, but also like scared, but also proud of it, but also like, oh, I would have loved it to have been off EastEnders, when you walk in and it's like, I want to say this and I want to say this and I want to say this, but it wasn't. It never is. It's always. And then I remember walking out the house and saying goodbye to a picture of my dad and walking out. And then I took me a day to come up with a suitable response to this email, which was very, because I know deep down I'm quite cutting. I can be quite dry. I also now know that actually I'm not stupid. And I penned it several times over until I got it right. And then I sent it. And then after I sent it, literally my body started howling and noises came out. Oh, it was so strange. It was like I sounded like a wolf. It wasn't crying. It was just
yeah.
stuff.
What was it? No, try and identify what was driving it, maybe.
I think that was the first time I'd been stood up for, as in I stood up for myself, since my dad would stand up for me. And it was a release of something.
Yeah. It definitely sounds like it, doesn't it? It sounds like it's like almost like you've lifted a lid off your voice and it just went rah, and just has just this primeval kind
It was
of
primal.
release of
Yeah.
It's sorry, not primeval.
Well, it was.
Sorry, this primal release of feeling and grief actually is what I'm hearing.
It was.
Huge grief.
Yeah. I actually, it's so weird, but it went on for about a minute. So after 30 seconds of it, I actually got my phone and recorded the end of it because I was like, what the earth is it doing? And
Wow.
and it scares me because I think if I'd not been in a better place in my head, if I'd been what I was always told, this very weak, pathetic thing, I would have caved to that. I would have gone, I'm so sorry, you're right, okay, please take me back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't. And it really was a case of, like, I'm not having this. Like, enough.
It was,
But it
yeah.
did feel like
It was,
David and Goliath though, and it still does. It does.
right. So let's talk about that, because here you are, you've done this fantastically brave thing and removed her from your life. Your sister has given you absolute clear evidence of how little respect they have for you, your feelings. Because if my child sent me that from another child, first of all, I'd be going, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But to the child, like, that's not for you to do. But second of all, I'd be going, hey, is this really how you feel? Because I want to understand what's happening there,
Yeah. Because
right?
that's what got to me is, as a mother, 2 children, and I know full
Yeah,
well I will go into, I don't care what it's about, right? And I don't care who started it. Right, you two.
yeah,
I'm so, and again, like you just said, about asking the questions. So when she got back to me, because I've had a year of emails and letters and God knows what, never ever does it ask the question. There's no questions. There's nothing about how I'm feeling, what's happened, nothing. It is just attack, attack, attack. It doesn't even say, why did you do this? It just goes, you did this and you did this to me and you made me feel this way. And I find that so bizarre because, again, if it'd been my 2 children, I'd want to really deep dive into what on earth is going on here, who said what,
yeah.
where's this come from. I wouldn't care that it was actually about me. I would,
No, it would just be, well, it's not even that I would want to sort it out between them. It would be that I just want to understand. I would care it was about me, only in the sense of, babe, do we need to have a conversation? Because these are quite really, difficult things.
yeah,
And I don't mind you telling me that I've hurt you, but I don't want to keep hurting you. So what do I need to do differently?
yeah,
Right? It's the thing of, people say to me, quite often I get, how would you feel if your child went no contact with you? And my response, my genuine, authentic response is, if I am hurting my child and not taking accountability for it, then good. Good. They should remove themselves from a relationship with me. Because if I am not willing to stop hurting them, then they need to be protected from that. Now, I can't see that happening, but I also can't also guess that it won't happen. That there might be something I do where my trauma I am blind to is impacting or will impact my child, and that I have to allow space for that. But my job as their parent is to teach them to walk away from relationships that hurt them. And if I am one of those people, then good, 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 because that means I've done my job properly, right? Part
absolutely.
of my job. Obviously, it's not the only aspect. So the fact that your mother just immediately went into this big victim space of how wounded she is about it all and how difficult it is for her and how painful it is that you said all these things absolutely shows how invisible you are in that relationship, how you are not a person other than one that she can control, manipulate, dominate, use as whatever supply she needs. So after all that happened, and you said, you've had letters and emails, and what is it that you're scared of now? What is actually happening right this minute that's scary still?
So originally it went back to anything that threatens my relationship with my children. My biggest fear is always losing my children somehow.
Sure.
Um, and I've worked through that, and I know obviously in the real world it's not okay. There is no threat there. I get it, but it still feels very real to me. But to me, it's like if someone doesn't want to talk to me, I'll I will apologize and I'll leave. I don't keep putting myself on them. You know, I don't. And it's like I've just had a year of every time I get a phone notification or an email or a door or something goes through the door, I'm like,
You're
I'm
jumping.
absolutely on edge. I'm hypervigilant. I'm scared to leave the house because we're on a main street, so I don't know. You know, I've got
Right.
cameras, and every time I have received communication, it's been awful to the point where I don't read them now because it's just been
Okay.
the last. Now it's got to the point where they go full circle and they do not an apology,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah.
can we just forget about everything that's happened and go back to where we were? If I had a fax, it would have been faxed. I had it screenshot, emailed, messages, put through the door. Every From
Okay.
both of them.
Okay.
And I'm just like, please leave me alone. It's just it, and I don't think it'll ever stop. And I also know that by ignoring this, it will then get nasty again. And I can't ever see it getting better. And
Right.
I don't want to feel like this anymore. It's massively impacting my life and what I want to do.
Okay.
And and it's affecting my kids so much as well because of how I'm showing up for
Right.
them. Um,
Sure.
the other night, I walked upstairs and my son jumped out of his room with a Nerf gun, and that sent me spiraling for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. In my house, we've got a big no jumping out on mummy rule because for a similar reason. I'm not very good at the jump scares. And my oldest, he thinks it's hilarious. Not in a that he then does it, but like, oh my God, you can't even watch the like most basic horror film
Yeah,
or like just even a TV show because that my nervous system has been so in that
yeah.
space of dysregulation in the past. And even though things are very calm now, but that it's just too easily accessed, like immediately in there. Right. So let's look at some very practical things because there's two parts to this. One is their emotional impact and how they've still got so much power essentially over you. And a lot of people think that to be able to or to know that you're over these kinds of experience or that you've broken the trauma bond means that you hate them essentially, whereas actually it's indifference, that you can laugh at them, that you are unbothered by their contacting you, like it's just like eye roll and move on kind of thing, like, and it's laughable when they're attacking rather than going into that triggered fearful shame space. So there's that side of things, and then there's the very practical what we can put in place. So your doorbell just rang, and what happened in your body? Okay, and that was a tensing up because and other people won't see. So you went like this, and a tensing and scared, and what's the feeling with it?
I just want to cry if I'm honest. It's just it's
Okay,
horrible,
how old do you feel? How old do you feel right now?
really.
Really small. 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the
What
door's
from?
huge, and if I answer it, I have to. Oh,
Okay, it's all right. So I want you to know you are safe. What's happened? Door slamming? Was that?
he's obviously put a note, so it's delivery. He's put a note through the door letterbox, and I've heard the letterbox go, and it's just
And it's triggered you again.
yeah,
Okay. So you feel 4-ish?
yeah.
What is 4-year-old you scared of happening?
It just feels like I'm so small, and the door's so big, and what behind the door is so big, and
Okay. So it's a monster behind the
yeah,
door?
and it's a very I get I know I get panic attacks and I feel claustrophobic about big and small, like oppression on, like, yeah.
Okay.
And I can feel it. I can feel it on my chest even now. You know.
Okay. Take a breath. Take a deep breath. Put your feet on the floor and just rub them on the floor. Don't get yourself electric shocks. Tell me, what colour is that wallpaper behind you? It's very pretty.
Brown and gold.
Brown and gold. And are they ferns or feathers? I can't
I
quite
think
see
they're
because I'm a little bit
palms.
blinded.
Palms.
Oh, palms.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice. And where did you get that from?
Oh God, you just said, I was like, oh, I got it from this designer boutique shop, and it's from a throwback from the 70s, and that's really bad of me. I'm not allowed to shop at that shop, am I? Sorry.
Well, says who? You're allowed to do whatever you like if you're not hurting people. Can you tell me 5 things in the room that you can see?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Helen. I'm trying to laugh because I'm like, God, it's just my
Don't. No, this is actually really important that and I'm glad I've actually seen this, because I can pull this out with you a little bit if you're happy to do so. But just humour me for a minute and tell me 5 things in the room that you can see.
There's my clock, chair, bookcase, photos, my desk.
Okay. What are in the photos? What's in the photos?
There's pictures that my children have done.
What colours? As in they've drawn the pictures, or they've...
Yeah.
Oh, cute. What are the pictures of?
So my son writes love notes to me, and and this was, he
That's
did
the
a
cutest.
beautiful one for my birthday where he cut out all the letters of the word love, and he's made a collage with it. And it's a great big banner.
That's amazing. Okay. So what? How big is it? Sorry.
It's quite big. It's probably like
Yeah.
about A3, and he's
Wow.
all different colours. Each letter is a different colour, and I framed it because like love means so much to me, because they're
Yeah.
a superpower and emotion.
Yeah.
And I look at it because I just look at all that little effort he's like cut each letter out individually, and then
That's so
made
cute.
this.
How old is he?
He's 8.
Roughly 8.
Yeah.
And so, what else? You said there was some others. Is there another drawing or something that the children have done?
Yeah, there's a picture of my kids, and then I've got a £20 note framed with thanks.
Okay, tell me. That's interesting.
Yeah, thanks to the universe for all the money I've ever received, and that I'm more than capable of making my own and being financially independent. And it's above the door.
That's amazing.
So every time I walk out, I see it.
That's fabulous.
And then there's a Helmut Newton print from the 70s,
Right.
which is very naughty.
Is it? I love that. What's it naughty? How is it naughty? I'm intrigued.
Gorgeous supermodels in swimwear with their boobs out and having a water fight.
Lovely.
And it's like liberation and not caring.
Yeah.
And
what would it be like to feel like one of those ladies?
I think that's probably why it's there. It's like the goal, isn't it? Just like they don't care. They don't care what their mothers think when they were. I think it's like Jerry Hall's in one of the pictures. Yeah, a young Jerry Hall.
Oh, amazing. Do you know Rebecca Goodwin? Have you ever heard of her? Yeah. And she's a OnlyFans creator and does a lot of sex work and porn and stuff, and is very, very wealthy. And I know she's in the top 5%, 2% of whatever on OnlyFans, and it's hard to get into that space. But her mother absolutely supports her doing it and has no difficulty. And she'll even do videos sometimes. I love her, right? I love her attitude. Very funny as a character anyway. And when people say to her, what would your mother say if she must be so ashamed of you? And she's like, Mum, Are you ashamed of me? No. You need to go out and do this, blah, blah. And like her mum's there, like, and they're, right? This is what acceptance is,
Yeah.
support and love. It's saying you do not have to use my conditions of worth to measure yourself, right? Mine are mine, and you don't have to have the same matching ones as me. So you've got these gorgeous women standing there having a great time and having a water fight, and you look at it and think of the freedom that they feel to be able to do that. And that's what you're aspiring for, is that freedom. Yeah.
It is, but
Let me just
maybe
ask you now. Go on.
I was going to say it
Sorry.
is an aspiration, but for me, the ultimate would then have acceptance from those around it. Like when you talk about, say, Rebecca Goodwin's like mum, and it's like, oh God, crave that so much,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course you do. But the thing is, when we are doing things and seeking acceptance from others who are so ready to disapprove, particularly, we're not really doing it for our own self-motivation. We're doing it for other people, right? What the great thing is about doing stuff for ourselves is that it filters out those who are not going to accept us. And that is also a grief-laden process too, as you well know. Let me just ask you how you're feeling right now. I just want to check in where the trigger is and how grounded you are.
Yeah, I can feel it a little bit, but it's not as bad. I can feel it in the back
Not
of my
as
throat and
what in the back of your throat. What's it doing in the back of your throat?
so down into like my chest, and it's just feels like a block. Feels like it needs
A block of
I don't know.
what?
Like
That's interesting. Let's keep going with that.
I don't know.
So it's in your throat.
I
It's in your throat going all the way down into your stomach.
no, just to my heart.
To your heart, so sort of your sternum.
Yeah.
If it was a shape, you said block, but if it was a shape, what shape would it be?
Straight and long and bulbous in my sternum.
Straight, long, bulbous.
Like I'm trying to swallow it to go
And
further down,
yeah,
and it won't go.
no.
But
What if you were, if just stay with me for a little moment. If it was a colour, what would it be?
red.
Oh,
Very
and does
dark.
it change colour? Sorry?
Very dark red. Very dark red.
Very, very dark red. And does it change shade or colour or anything else at all?
It can go when it's like it almost like goes purpley. It's so dark. It almost goes bluey black. And
what is that when you're more scared, or is it that when
yeah,
you're less scared? Okay.
more scared. So it was that, and then it goes obviously more red. Is it? It
Okay.
reminds me of like when bruising comes out on skin. Those sort of colours.
And so if it was okay, that's interesting as an analogy, right? It's purple, deep purple turning to red. And then does it eventually fade to pink, or what happens when you're calm?
Yeah, like a pale flesh tone. Yeah.
Okay. And then what, like, just becomes part of you in that
Yeah.
space?
It doesn't ever go into a ball of light or a nice colour. No.
No, okay. So does it get bigger, smaller? Does it shrink? Like, does it grow that, like, outwards, inwards? Does it do any of that?
Yeah, it's always there, but obviously it just sometimes it's like woof, like really, really big.
And if it had a voice, what would it say to you?
Shame. Because
Shame.
I felt
Okay.
like so when in this conversation, I feel like I'm taking up a lot of space. So I'm ashamed of that. When I've not been able to hold my emotions together, I'm ashamed of that.
Okay.
When obviously I'm glad this happened, the doorbell, but I'm also like, oh, for fuck's sake. Why did that have to happen?
I get it.
It's very vulnerable.
Well,
it's like very like you've seen it now. It's like I can't,
yeah.
I could say this to you and then you could say, remember when you were talking about how you get on edge when the door goes, and I'll go, no, I don't. No, that doesn't happen.
Okay.
I can't prove it now. It's happened in real time. You've seen it. I'm like, oh, that's out.
And what's the fear? What's the fear of me knowing that?
It it just feeds like every bit of shame and everything, and it feeds the whole, like I am so weak and I'm so pathetic and I'm so scared all the time. And then I
Whose
feel,
voice is that?
well, that's obviously my mother's. And
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. No, let's just. Sorry, I'm deliberately cutting you off, because that bar that, or the thing that's down the feeling here, this sensation, this red, purple, bigger, smaller. You said it was shame. If you could just imagine for a moment, just taking it out and putting it on the desk in front of you, and I said, what's it saying to you? And you said shame, and then you showed me all the different ways you felt shame through our conversation. And let me ask you, how old does that being that's there feel itself?
so I'm just repulsed by it, like the idea of it
I can
there.
tell.
And it's all old and ugh, disgusting. It's like rancid, decaying flesh, like oh, it's horrible. So horrible.
Okay, so it's poisoning you is the one thing, so that's really important. It's also wounding you. And then, so you say it's old decaying flesh, but how old actually does it feel?
Really old, like 100, like 100 years old, like really, yeah,
Okay.
really old.
And if I was to ask you, what is it protecting you from? What would you say?
I'm losing my family here. I'm losing my identity. Everything I've been told, everything. It's just going. Still a little bit
Okay.
there. There's still a little bit of, yeah.
So it's telling you I'm trying to protect you from losing everything?
Yeah. I'm self-sabotaging. I'm messing up here. And I think that,
So it's trying to keep you being in control of how people treat you?
yeah. I think
What was that brief breath? That was a big. What happened there?
I feel that I'm experiencing hypervigilance and all this and PTSD as punishment, and like the universe is trying to protect me. There, it's like going, look, this is what happens. This is what happens. This is what
Okay.
you've got one last chance. You're hanging by a thread here.
Okay. So all of these feelings you're feeling are trying to protect you from losing everything.
I know on one hand though, like, oh, I want it gone. I want to lose it.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's toxic. I've got so much more to me and to live and to all this good stuff in my life.
Mm.
I know
But
that.
there's, when that's sitting there, I'm wondering about toxic hope. Is there hope still that you could repair things?
I know that I think it's the saddest thing. Maybe it's with my sister. So with my mum and the therapy I've had, I've almost like written her off. It's almost like I can accept to a point. I fully studied narcissism to understand,
Okay.
to where I understand it. I get it. But my sister, it just broke my heart.
What is it? What's different with her?
It's like that. We're never close. We're never close. There's nothing. I feel like, so I don't watch horror or thriller or anything like any of that. Okay, I don't think I ever will. And I think one of the oh God, this is really deep. This is going to sound so silly. Okay, so the James Bulger case. Yeah.
Yeah.
when that would appear on the tabloids and the newsagents, I would have to leave the shop.
Okay.
I do remember it happening and not giving it too much thought. But as an adult, especially since I've had children, I can't.
Mm.
If I see anything on
Mm.
social media, anything to do, I cannot. It makes me really want to gag. And I've explored it a little bit, and I think it goes down to that feelings of the trust that little boy ensued when he went with those.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's little me putting a trust in the wrong people. And it's a gut wrenching, vomit inducing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the
Go
idea of
on.
someone trusting someone and those people and have been hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that innocent.
There is such a betrayal in her behaviour as it is. But look at every time that people you've thought were safe have let you down. And it just reinforces that constant narrative of, I'm not safe. I'm not safe. I don't know how I can be safe because every time I trust, it gets broken. There is a repetition. So that shame that you are holding on to is trying to protect you, even here now in our space, from being betrayed again. I would say maybe part of it. Shame is a really interesting thing. It's a topic I actually feel really passionate about, simply because I don't think a lot of people know how to identify it. And actually, all the coping mechanisms that we have, people pleasing, hyper independence, all the different things, the fear of rejection, the fear of conflict, all of those are sitting trying to protect us from feeling toxic shame. And I don't think people understand that. And that it's not shame that is helpful in guiding us to being the human we want to be. It's shame that's telling us that we are a bad person. We're worthless. We have no right to space or time in this world, or things, or to shop at Marks and Spencer's, or to use a different bank, or just to have my own experience of my body, or have more than 2 children if I want them. Shame is in that toxic space, is dictating who we need to be as a person to be accepted by people who are determined not to accept us. Right? So that shame that's sitting in your throat, very interesting that as we're sat here recording a podcast and the door goes, you immediately get something in your throat. You are speaking your truth. And the doorbell goes and the trigger was huge. And then the letterbox went and it was even bigger. That the fear of speaking up, of owning it. Look what happened last time you did that. What your sister did. And here you are now. I'm not surprised that trigger was so big. I'm not surprised in the slightest. I'm also glad I was with you to be able to try and understand it a little bit.
Mm.
Because I knew when I read your email that all of this is going to be around them still having power over you. You still being connected to that toxic shame. The fear that you've got it wrong, that you've made mistakes, that, or even if I've got it right, that maybe I'm making too much of it, or so on and so forth and so on. I had a nice life. I had all the things. I had a great childhood to the doctor as he's diagnosing you or prescribing prescription depression medication, even though your father died when you were 15 and you were sexually abused. I had a great happy childhood. It was amazing. No, that's not true. Not even if your mother was the most amazing mum. Those 2 events are so traumatic, they could very easily cause depression if not addressed, right? Very
Yeah.
easily. So that toxic shame those triggers every time you have any experience. What's happened? Did the thought just come into your head? What just happened there?
Yeah.
John, what
You
happened?
said about the noise, the door, the noise, everything like that. And I just thought, the door, and why I'm always have to see the door. The bathroom at home, the bathrooms. Every lock on our doors was one of those horrible coin ones, you know, where you put the coin in, you twist
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Obviously, we were told it was for safety, but no, it wasn't, was it? That noise of a coin going into metal.
Okay.
It's metal, the door.
Yeah.
It's the door.
Okay.
Every time
Okay.
the bath's facing the door, the bath is facing the door. We didn't have a shower, I had a bath, the bath faced the door. And every time I never could have privacy. I'm on the
No
toilet or I'm in
privacy
the
at all.
bath. Every single time. There were other toilets in the house, but every time I had to come in the room. Every time she had to come in the room. Every time. Yeah.
So
And that
covert
noise,
sexual
the
abuse
metal.
as well.
The metal. Is it?
That 100%. If she's walking in and denying you physical autonomy, privacy, intruding on your body in that way, that's covert sexual abuse. It's entitlement to your body.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
Every single
And
time.
no wonder. And also then on top of that, what she's taught you is, I can't trust doors either.
No.
She can get through doors. I'm not safe. Even if I sit here and don't answer the door, I still can't protect myself from her.
No, I can't.
So right.
Even I'd come
Okay.
back to visit in my 20s and 30s. Still would happen.
That is utterly disgusting. Utterly disgusting.
And sometimes
Just for a moment, imagine it was you and I, for some reason, are in a space together, and you go to the bathroom to have a bath, and lock yourself in, and I unlock myself and come in. What do?
So my first thought is, that's normal though.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because it's being conditioned into you. And then what?
It just makes me feel so exposed and so vulnerable.
Right.
And just, oh. But it was always,
And then, go on.
well, it was always, sometimes it was over nothing. Sometimes it was just to get something. Sometimes it was just for a little chat. But half the time it was to have a go at me. So then I'm naked, I'm vulnerable, and I'm attack, you know. So you couldn't wait until I'm out the bathroom to then bring this up with me. You have to do it now.
No. Yes, she did. Do you know why? To capitalize on the humiliation.
Yeah.
And your vulnerability. You cannot fight back when you are stood naked. Now, isn't it interesting that you've got women up there naked having fun? Isn't it? That nakedness to you has been exploited and vulnerable making and terrifying. And then here they are enjoying their nakedness, their bodies, their autonomy even in that. Right? We're going to have to wrap up soon. I feel like we could keep going and going because there's a huge amount to unpick. But what I want to offer is some really practical things. And the first is the thing that I say to everyone. Once you have said, don't contact me anymore, and you are continue to be contacted, you are being harassed. And by the sounds of it, it sounds like you're being harassed. And so that is maybe a conversation to have with the police, if you want to. Then it's, what would you do if they were not family members? And then what is holding you back then from treating them as any other person? And then it's blocking. Where are we allowing contact to happen? Where are they getting access through email, through texts, or whatever it might be, right? So looking at where you can put things in place and exploring with a therapist, whoever, why you're experiencing or fearing doing that, what's holding you in that space. Because there's a really interesting thing that even though it's awful and horrible, we still get a relationship with them. So we stay in those spaces for having that relationship, even though it's not helpful. Then on top of that, there is essentially other little things like if that is what's happening every time your doorbell goes, you either change the doorbell, put a sign saying do not ring the doorbell, right? And put a parcel box outside if that's an option. Obviously, I don't know where you live, and I don't know, well, I know where you live, but I don't know what your house looks like. But if you can get a letterbox thing outside your house, or whatever it might be, that stops that being a constant re-triggering, but also really working out the fact that you feel so little and they feel so big is showing or telling me that they've still got this huge power over you. And what I might, if I was to work with you therapeutically, it would be going into that space of how and why they hold this power. How does it help you for them? And your answer, or most people answer, it doesn't help me. It does in some way, always. We don't do things unless they benefit us. So it's understanding what is in that space, what is in that, what is in that dynamic that's serving a purpose, whether it is just that you get to keep that relationship with them. Yeah. We are going to have to wrap up. I'm so sorry that it's come to the end. But I suppose before we do, is there anything I haven't answered that you would like me to answer before we finish?
No, thank you for thank you for being there when the doorbell went, Helen.
Kate, thank you for letting me see and sharing it with me and exploring it with me. And what I think I'm going to, at the risk of rescuing and managing feelings, I'm going to tell you I do not have any difficulty with the amount of time we've spent together. And if I did, I would have stopped. And that there is a thing about being able to trust me to do that, but also recognizing your thought process and your assumption of other people's feelings towards you and what you're doing that for and where you're anticipating betrayal, rejection, judgment, criticism. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. That is my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, being so brave and letting me witness that and help you through that grounding. It was phenomenal how you were able to hear me in those moments. And I think there's something very important and empowering about that, that as I was talking to you in the trigger, you held and stayed and did it. And it was, you've got such a power there about how you can manage yourself. It's just having those little tools sometimes. All right, Kate, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who is listening. And I guess all that remains to be said is take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Helen.